Well, it's Wednesday. It's November 8th. It's 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Bob Harris. This is the FootballDiehards YouTube channel. It's time to go on the hot seat. First, FootballDiehards.com is the website. Appreciate you joining us here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Every Saturday at noon for the Ask Me Anything sessions where we can get into all your lineup issues. We'll get into some tonight. We're not afraid of that. Not afraid of anything. Hit the subscribe button. Notification bell. If you've already completed the YouTube task I've just assigned you, do the next YouTube task. Hit the like button. I like it when you like me. I'm going to hit the dislike button so you can feel free to pile on if you want. I know some people don't want to break the seal. I'll break the seal for you. I'm very good about that. Love disliking myself, but I do love my guests. We've got a lot going on here this week, as we always do. And as always is the case, on the hot seat includes a fantastic guest. This week is every bit as fantastic as every week. Maybe even more so. I have the great Sam Wagman here. From the Game Day NFL, a little bit of work at Football Guys. You hear him often on the Football Diehards radio program on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, which you should listen to every Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and hear me on Sunday too. But Sam, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, and we get another great week of football. Not a great slate of games for sure. Right. Some pretty lowly matchups in there, but it's always a great day to be great when we got football going. So. Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on again. Chuck, hello. Dominic, I see you all out there in the chat. Mr. Scampers, Dame, Andrea, Ryan, Doug, thanks for coming, everyone. Jim Furry, good to see you. Dave Listman, hello. I see all the questions piling up as well. So we'll get to those in a moment. Wanted to have hit you up with a few questions. I mean, we got things going on, Sam. There's things happening, not the least of which Justin Fields apparently won't be ready this week. Tyson Bagent gets another start against the Carolina Panthers on Thursday Night Football. Question one, when will we get a good Thursday night game?
Never.
I think
never.
It's entirely possible we don't.
Yeah, these games are just they're not interesting because it's always on a short week for somebody, and it just leads to lackluster football from one or both sides.
Yeah, I think that, we were talking about this, Dempsey and I, on the radio program the other night. Is like, why not make them all flexes? And I realized the impossibility of that. The logistics of plotting fans wanting to come to games. I say to hell with those fans. I don't need them going to games. I need the games to be good. But yeah, this is going to be a rough one. We'll see if Khalil Herbert makes it back. DJ Chark listed as doubtful on the other side, so watch out for those things. Herbert seems like he might need a little more time, that short turnaround. Seems more likely we will see James Conner this week. Seems almost certain we will see Kyler Murray. As you head into this week's game, it's against the Falcons. Not like they're not laying down for anybody on defense for the most part. If you were in a position to have to rely on Kyler Murray, how confident would you be in a player who has never played in this kind of offense? Guys ran an air raid since high school. Do you think he jumps right in and gets something done, or would you like to go a different direction if at all possible?
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. The good news is he still has Hollywood Brown there. Trey McBride has stepped up really well. I mean, we're talking about Kyler Murray. The guy's been a perennial top 5 fantasy asset his entire career that he's been in the NFL so far. Will he be afraid to run? Probably. I would probably say so, at least for the first few games, but I would be shocked if he didn't settle back into, a back-end QB1 almost right away. And I think we should see a lot better offense from the Cardinals right out the gate. And it's not like the Falcons have any sort of pass rush whatsoever, so they're not really going to be able to pressure him that much. So I'm not too worried. As starting games go, coming back off an ACL, I think this is a really good one for Kyler.
What do you think the odds are on Connor? Would you be playing him? Were he available as well?
Well, they just opened up the practice window for him. So yep. I'm not quite sure we're going to see him this week. I would like them to. I think, this is a perfect game for them to lean on the run in Kyler's first game back. Again, the Falcons have a decent run defense, but, it's not, the blow anyone away kind of run game. And I think there's a decent chance that the Cardinals are up in this game. I would really like to see him. I have him on a bunch of fantasy teams, but I'm not sure that he's going to come back this week just yet.
I've been in a bunch of leagues where I'm already provisionally placed him in lineups because there's a need there. I'm hoping for the best, but it is a risky play on this one. Justin Jefferson, practice window opened. Let me ask you this. I had a question today from someone about a possible trade, a 3-for-1 trade. I think they were giving up. They're in a position to make it into the playoffs. And they're probably doing the correct thing and like working on their high end, limiting some depth. They were going to give up Amari Cooper, Taysom Hill, and Chuba Hubbard for Justin Jefferson in hopes of having him for a playoff run. The obvious concern is going to be the quarterback, but how do you feel about moves like that in general, eliminating your depth, piling up the high end points for a playoff run?
I mean, it's very few players that I would make that move for. I am a little bit hesitant to make it because of the fact that it's not Kirk Cousins there and it's Josh Dobbs, but I still think it's Justin Jefferson. I think, Dobbs was able to hold up Hollywood, just barely enough. And I think Jefferson is on a much higher plane of talent, obviously. I think this is not a bad deal. I'm not the biggest Amari Cooper fan, which probably leads me a little bit more towards the Jefferson side. Chuba is very, game script and matchup dependent, and Taysom Hill, you never know what he's going to do. So I would take that trade. I think that's a great move to put yourself in position for a playoff push. Can definitely get you over the top in some cases. And if Jefferson, comes back and looks like his usual self, I think that's probably a slam dunk.
Right, he's a very good player, and I've been preaching all along. Everyone in this chat knows this, that I'm not letting less than ideal quarterback situations keep me from playing or feeling or at least having expectations for super talented wide receivers. I'm told Justin Jefferson is super talented. We'll find out upon his return. Won't be this week, people. Kevin O'Connell basically said it would be a little aggressive. To get him back this week, I think was the quote. Jamar Chase a little beat up this week. That'll be something to watch. David Montgomery heading back. So we'll watch for those things. The Giants have no quarterback. There might be a situation, Sam, where I'm going to let the quarterback scare me off the receiving assets, because the receiving assets have kind of sucked and the Giants are scoring about 10 points a game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's going out there and letting Tommy DeVito, make them think that they got a good shot at winning in fantasy with any of those Giants receivers this week. The guy's I don't even know what he averages. I don't think it's anything good.
Giants this year are scoring, 11 points, I want to say, a game. But like Saquon Barkley, how much does this limit him? How concerned would you be about playing Saquon Barkley right now? Been huge volume the last couple of weeks. Can that continue?
I'm nervous because, he's getting the huge volume, but we got a long history of nicks and bruises with this guy coming off big volume stretches for him. And I'm worried for him, his future and, down the stretch, especially for a playoff push. You're putting Barkley on the field 30, 35 times a game. Right. That's not good for him. And he's not doing you much because they can't move down the field. So he's getting, he'll have 26, 28 carries, 100, 110 yards, but he's not getting in the end zone. So at the end of the day, it's all for naught because he's just not getting you the ceiling, and he's all of the brunt of the touching, like Matt Breida in between the tackles and splitting Saquon out in space and letting him make those high value plays. It's a whole different story, but they're not doing that.
You also wonder if there doesn't come a point where maybe it's just beneficial to shut everybody down. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll get into the questions here. Sam, Sniper Mel, hello. Hello, 513 Rookie. Hi, Doug. Hi, Remy. Hello, Albert. John Bonneville in the house. Good to see you. Jim Furias. We saw that. All right. Got to Royal Slade. How are you doing, buddy? So Chuck Bachman wants to know. He's got a trade question. It's a standard league. He was offered Jonathan Taylor for Joe Burrow. His other quarterback is C.J. Stroud. Only concern is the bye week next week, and then the Bucs run defense make the trade for Taylor.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I think Taylor has a really solid playoff schedule. I would make this deal. I love that you have C.J. Stroud in your backup pocket. Stroud is basically Joe Burrow light. He throws just as much. Right. He can scramble if he needs to, but he doesn't always do it. He's running an offense that's pretty high in pass rate over expected right now. I'm all aboard having CJ Stroud in a situation like this and upgrading pretty massively to Taylor, who's one of the few backs that should see workhorse capability down the stretch. So I really like this, and I would take this trade.
Yeah, good games upcoming for the Colts for Tampa Bay, Tennessee, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Atlanta ahead. So be mindful of that. But I'm with you. I like almost any time I feel like I can get a position player for a quarterback, I probably want to do that. Mm-hmm. Probably want to do that. Dominic Conti wants to know, and he says hi to Bob and Sam. Hi, Dominic. In a 2-quarterback league, as my number 2 quarterback, thinking of starting Will Levis at Tampa Bay over Watson at Baltimore. The matchup seems like that might lead you that direction. Do you have enough faith in young Will Levis?
I do. I think this is a perfect spot to take advantage of Levis. I think in his rookie year, I think you're going to see him have great spots in spots where, one, he's not going to see all that much pressure, and 2, where you can take advantage of a secondary. And there's might not be a secondary you can take advantage of like the Buccaneers right now. They are very much struggling along the perimeter. Carlton Davis, who should be on DeAndre Hopkins, possibly as a shadow, has been one of the worst cornerbacks in football over the past couple months. So I expect them to heavily target DeAndre Hopkins. And that could be a back and forth game, given the fact that the Titans are also been a massive pass funnel. And we haven't seen Baker look that shabby. And I am full fading anybody going against the Ravens defense right now because they are scary on the back end.
Especially Watson. I just don't, I need to see a little more. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm like, I remain our little skeptic here on this one. I'm just like, it was fine last week. Amari Cooper came through big time. It was all fantastic, but I'm just not sure. And you're right. The matchup is ferocious. Let's see. Bob Sam, looking forward to the show. Well, we're looking forward to it, Ryan. Thank you for coming. Tight end question. Would you rather have Tyler Conklin or Gerald Everett going forward for the next 4 weeks? Whew.
I think I would rather have
a moment.
Yeah, but he's still attached to the Jets offense.
Right.
There's no ceiling there. At least Everett, is going to get some of the end zone targets. He'll be used pretty, okay across the middle of the field and in the red zone when he's not getting his target sniped by Parham. And, we know the Chargers will keep on throwing it. The Jets, I got no faith in any of those offensive weapons. I'm even starting to sour a little bit on Brees. Who's got a little bit of a tough schedule going forward.
I don't want to let this last game totally sour because it wasn't good, and he didn't. We didn't see any explosive plays, and I get that we're not going to get those every time.
Yeah.
Coming up games in Week 12 against Miami, we got Atlanta. I got Houston, pretty favorable matchup there. Miami Week 15, Washington Week 16. So we've got some games ahead for them. I'm with you on the Chargers, mostly because there's going to be no Josh Palmer for the vast majority of those 4 weeks. He's placed on IR, and I think that opens the door for a little more bandwidth. And you're right, Donald Parham's a little bit of a concern, but not an overriding concern. It's generally been Gerald Everett when he's in the locked and upright position. Jim Furry wants to know, he's planning to start Montgomery and Tyler Algier, keeping Deontay Foreman and Devin Singletary on his bench. Devin Singletary agrees with that.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about Algier, but I think you kind of have to do what you have to do there. I'm just not a huge fan of Algier at all, and I love the idea of starting. Montgomery right now. He gets a good matchup in his first game back, and I think he'll crush in that one.
I would agree with that, and he's practicing fully. He wasn't on IR, so you don't have to worry about that. But I do think I might watch this one, and if there was no Khalil Herbert, I might go Foreman over Algier. Does that
interesting? I don't know. I'm struggling to think because I'm starting to lean. I'm starting to lean on the fact that Arthur Smith is just gonna tell us what he's gonna do, and he's telling us he just wants to start Algier. So I think he's just going to keep firing him up out there, and I think that's possibly what we should just be prepared to see because it's clear this guy is not going to act rationally and put Bijan Robinson in the red zone, despite where he should. But yeah, I don't know. If Herbert comes back, Foreman becomes pretty much a must bench for me.
Yeah, definitely if Herbert's back. I mean, it's going to be some kind of split, and I don't know what kind of split. So. you could talk me into this one, right? I mean, the Arthur Smith angle is always one that we're all gonna like lean into a little bit. Even mustachio-less Arthur Smith might not get this figured out. I did notice he was saying nice things about Bijan clearing up and opening space for other players. So we got that going for us. Yeah, this is not. Yeah, like I'm right there. I mean, it's the matchup is great. It's not like Carolina's like formidable either, though. So I might watch it. I think I would probably watch it. And if there was no Khalil Herbert in this one, I probably would go Foreman. But it is that.
Yeah, that's conversation there. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's literally whether Herbert starts or not decides whether you start Foreman or not. If he's not, you fire up Foreman with confidence. I think it's pretty much a given at this point that Herbert's going to play. I think the fact that they designated him to return, and I think he's been ramping up to practice. So
we'll see. Yeah, you're right. I mean, he has practiced fully. Everything looks like it's full go. I thought it was going to be full go for Justin Herbert too. So we'll find out. But watch for that, Jim, and see if he is. If they don't activate him or add him to the active roster in advance of the game, I would go ahead and do that. Or so they probably won't make him inactive. They'll probably leave him off the roster. So you'll know that about 4, I think, in the afternoon. Dominic has another question. PPR, sit 2 of these. Evans versus Tennessee. Ooh. Hopkins versus Tampa Bay. Deontay Johnson versus Green Bay? Or Hollywood Brown versus Atlanta. Downs versus New England. Myers versus the Jets. So I got to sit 2 of those. Is Green Bay?
All right.
They are. All right, so Evans.
Yes, they are.
Hopkins.
Yeah, so
Deontay Johnson. Hollywood, Josh Downs, Jacoby Myers.
It's a lot of guys. I'm definitely not firing up Josh Downs and Jacoby Myers. Both have tougher matchups that I'm not really looking to go there. I'm pretty borderline on Deontay. The problem is going against that secondary is never fun. It's just such a run funnel that I can't imagine they don't go out there and run Warren and Najee 25, 30 times. So I'm skeptical on that. So that leaves us with 3 guys. That leaves us with Evans, Hopkins, and Hollywood. And Kyler's first game goes to a safety blanket a bunch. It wouldn't shock me if that safety blanket happens to be Hollywood in a game that they're likely going to have to throw the ball to win. And honestly, I think I would probably roll with Mike Evans over DeAndre Hopkins. I think you're rolling, with Evans there because he's a little bit more fluid and established at this point of the season over Hopkins, who is, kind of just had that one massive game and has been a little bit quieter. Despite what we said about Levis earlier, I would trust Baker a little bit more than Levis in this spot. So I would probably go with Evans and Hollywood out of these 6. All
right, I think he was able to start 4, so we got the 2 out of the way. But I wanted to see the order, just that you like him in general, because I might have some of these decisions myself. And I'm kind of with you. I think the way you ran it through kind of dovetails with my thinking.
I thought it said start 2. I thought it said start 2, not sit 2.
Sit 2. So you sat.
That makes it easier.
Start.
Yeah,
but I had some other.
Yeah, that makes it easier.
Other ones in there that I'm interested in, so I just let you go. You're welcome.
There you go. But yeah, those are the 4 I like.
Yeah, I see it the same way you see it. Just basically the way you ran through that is pretty much my vision as well. Dameon Pierce, is he even worth a bench spot at this point?
Yes, I do. And this is just me holding on to whatever sunken cost fallacy I have on Dameon Pierce at this point in the season, because I do think he comes back and, looks better than at least what the Texans have. Surely they're not going to keep throwing Singletary out there as the lead back when he's looked so lackluster, in the featured role. But I have to imagine that he sees something down the stretch. But I don't know. I'm starting to wane, but he's definitely worth a bench spot.
Yeah, I think he's worth a bench spot. It's bad, Singletary came up so small in his starting opportunity that I don't think he's going to be a major issue. Of course, whichever of them is able to kick field goals might come in handy as well. So, got to watch for that.
Yeah.
All right.
Dario Ogunbowale season once again.
Fantastic work by him. Keep him on your bench. You might have to kick again. No, probably not. Kevin Payne, great question here because I'm pondering this same issue myself. How do we view both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery this week and the rest of the season?
Oh, this is a very fascinating one. So for me, I have had a take all season, and it was one of my favorite bold takes in the preseason, was that both Gibbs and Montgomery would finish as RB2s in points per game at the end of the season. So I still think that, despite the fact that we saw Gibbs have his slow start, but then he bursted out, in the few games that he had, silence Montgomery, and looked really, really good as a feature back. They can't put the genie back in the bottle, but they also can't ignore how good Montgomery has been, while he's healthy this season, just scoring touchdowns at will and looking really, really good in the running game behind one of the better run blocking offensive lines in the league. I think they use them both pretty equally. I think we probably are done with the 65-35 split that we saw earlier in the year, and I think this becomes much more of a very much 50-50 split. Think of it kind of like Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris from last year, where the Patriots literally alternated drives. One drive, Ramondre would get the ball all drive. One drive, Damian would get the ball all drive. And that included red zone snaps, and that included everything. It was just each player had one drive to himself, and they would just alternate back and forth and kind of just ride the hot hand based on that. And I think that's probably what you're going to see in the Detroit backfield. It's going to make starting them it's going to make choosing between them kind of difficult. But honestly, if you don't have any better options, there's not a ton of things that say don't start them both. Like, I would be comfortable starting them both. It's one of the few backfields that I would say they both have mega high ceilings.
I think mega high there. I think the training wheels are off Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that's safe to say. Mm-hmm. And how they split that up, maybe we get a little hot hand kind of action going at some point. And that might be a little troublesome for some of us. But I'm with you. I'm playing the one I got. And if I was in a pinch and we're hitting the point where you might have pinches, I could put both in the same backfield. But it's a good enough offense that I could play both at the same time if I had to. It's a nice enough basket that all my eggs could fit in it if I needed them to. There we go. All right, so primetime game is going to be unwatchable this week. John Bonneville agrees with us, and we agree with you. And, man, it's just I think when they're making the schedule, Sam, I was talking about this the other night, they're looking more – I think they, obviously have in mind competitive nature, but you never know how it's going to play out. They're going for storylines, right? They're going for the drama. Right. Like, that's why we want to see the Jets every primetime game, because it was supposed to be Aaron Rodgers. That's why last year it was it was Russell Wilson against the Seahawks in the first game. They're trying to, they're going for the soap opera angle. Sometimes those angles don't play out, people. It's totally true.
Yeah, remember that they're releasing these schedules in May, right? So they don't know what's going to happen. They're not like the Simpsons. They don't have a time machine. So they're hamstrung.
I missed that episode.
Wait! You've never heard this? Okay, you've never heard this conspiracy theory?
I don't watch a lot of television.
No, it's not.
Go ahead.
No, it's not.
Educate me.
It's not an episode. There's a conspiracy theory that the creators and writers room is somewhere in there. There's a time traveler because the Simpsons have predicted so many real life events that were on TV, were on TV. And these episodes were on TV 20, 30 years ago. Like, they predicted Donald Trump becoming president. They had that episode in the 90s. There are just tons of different things. They predicted some variant of the coronavirus. There were so many different threads that people have pulled out of old Simpsons episodes and connected them to real life events. Is it true? Probably not, but it is my favorite conspiracy theory of all time.
People are great at connecting unconnected things that don't really need to be connected, but we connect them.
Of course.
I love that. That was a good one. And I've heard this too. Now that you've said it, I've actually heard all this. All right. I love that. All right. Eddie Rest, 513 Rookie wants to know if we've got any rest of season thoughts on Aaron Jones.
Oh, this is a tough one for me. I don't know what to think about Aaron Jones right now because, sure, he's coming off the injury and he looked good last week, but the Green Bay offense is just not dependable enough to where Jones can be thought of as anything more than, a middling RB2 with upside that's completely based on his matchup. Because, he realistically should be, a 19 to 20 touch a week guy. But he's just not. And they, whether he's healthy or whether he's not, they don't use him that way. They continue to throw out A.J. Dillon, even though A.J. Dillon has showed us nothing to show, that he should be, the primary early down back. It's just, and Aaron and Roger or Jones is just getting a little bit older every single year. And we're starting to see it again with the nicks and bruises here and there. And he doesn't score touchdowns. That's the biggest issue, is that he gets the volume sometimes, but he doesn't score touchdowns with it. It's very rare. So that's what worries me about him. I think I would have him ranked probably in the late teens of my rest of the season rankings at running back, even maybe like RB15, RB16. And that's probably where I would have him, about on a weekly basis. And, matchup dependent, he slides up a couple spots or down a couple spots.
They do have games ahead against the Chargers, pretty favorable. Detroit, less so. Kansas City, the Giants. So, but we haven't seen like playmaking Aaron Jones since week 1, right? We got a glimpse of playmaking. And prior to that, we didn't see him much last season either, or at least down the stretch last season. And I think it's been an issue, and this offense isn't quite hitting on all cylinders. Yeah, I'm not enthusiastic. I do think, probably if you have him on rosters, you're probably going to be playing him every week, but you should keep your expectations in check and be watching for players who are emerging and, be ready to divorce that name from the numbers and move away from Aaron Jones if need be. Remy LeBleu wants to know, flex help. I need one of these guys. One, Sam. One. Alexander Madison versus New Orleans, Terry McLaurin versus Seattle, Devin Singletary versus Cincinnati, or Chuba Hubbard against Chicago.
Ooh, this is close. I think I would probably lean with Terry McLaurin here. I think against Seattle, you're going to see a pretty back and forth game here. This has the potential to be one of the highest scoring ones on the slate. With the fact that Washington, all they do is drop back to pass, and all Seattle does, or all Washington does, is give up passing yards and plays down the field. They give up the most chunk explosive passing plays in the league. So I would take Terry McLaurin here simply because I think he has the highest ceiling. He definitely has a little bit of a low floor, but I'm not trusting Singletary even against Cincinnati's bad run defense. I don't trust Hubbard. I already took his under rushing yards because quietly over the last 3 weeks, the Bears are allowing the fewest rushing yards per game in the NFL. And Madison, the Vikings don't believe in him. Why should I? So despite the fact that Cam Akers is now out for the rest of the season, Madison wasn't good to begin with. So, you're not getting anything extra from Madison that you weren't already getting there. So by virtue of process of elimination, McLaurin is left. And he, while I'm not super, super high on him like I was earlier in the season, I think he's the best option here.
Same. I mean, I would maybe consider Hubbard, but I think what you said is true. In recent games, Chicago's gotten tougher. So I'm probably going with the volume, hope for volume. By the way, Jahan Dotson's a little beat up, either limited or did not practice. What was it? I think maybe did not practice to open the week, and Curtis Samuel was limited. So two guys a little nicked up. Sounds like Samuel will come back, but either way, if only one is really healthy, I'm all about that one. I'm going with you. They're dropping back about 50 times a game. Doug Lewis, I'm going to need one tight end and one flex. Two of these players, one must be a tight end. Dalton Kincaid versus Denver, Sam Laporta versus the Chargers, Godwin versus Tennessee, or Samuel versus Seattle. I think it's easy. What do you think?
That is definitely Laporta. Definitely Laporta for me. I think you have to roll him out there, given the fact that should be another higher scoring game. And I think Godwin is probably your other play here. It hurts me a little bit to leave Kincaid out here, but I think Godwin will see a nice amount of opportunity against the pass funnel defense of Tennessee. I
would agree with that. There's just fewer targets in for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, I would prefer it to be Evans, but it's not. And so I mean, Godwin's out-targeted Evans this year, has not outproduced him. The fantasy points difference is about, 30 or 40, between 30 and 40 points, I think, difference because Evans gets the touchdowns. But I'm with you, and I'll just avoid Samuel until I know he's fully healthy. And Kincaid is the one that I feel sad about leaving out, but I am leaving him out nonetheless. 513 rookie, another one from him, wants to know, will Tony Pollard ever be the running back we know and hope he can be under McCarthy's weak West Coast system? I see what you did there at 513. So is this a case of where we should have believed what the Cowboys told us last year, that Tony Pollard is best used when the usage is limited? He's at his best when he's not getting all the workload, or is there something more to it? Is it perhaps the way Mike McCarthy's using him in this offense?
Yeah, and we talked about this on the radio show the other night as well. And my thought then and my thought now is that I think Pollard was, as you said, better suited for that kind of limited, kind of spark plug type of role, to where he didn't have to do all the heavy lifting between the tackles, because I think that's probably slowed him down a little bit. I think, like I said, I think he had to bulk up a little bit, put some extra pounds on that might have limited his explosivity a little bit there. And I think you know what? Look, at this point in the season, all these running backs are banged up that are running in between the tackles, because that's just what happens when you're running into 300-pound defensive linemen 20 times a game. And Pollard's hasn't been going anywhere because apart from the fact that, he's been used a lot more, his offensive line isn't as good as it was last year. They're not performing as well as they were, the past couple of years. Because outside of Zach Martin, it's a little bit unproven, this offensive line. So
right.
I think Pollard was best used, as a lightning rod to Ezekiel Elliott's very slow thunder last year. I think they would have benefited from bringing in another back at the trade deadline. I was really hoping they would, just someone to absorb that short yardage work, so Pollard didn't have to, kill his body doing it, because it hurts us for fantasy. And I don't think we're going to see, the high-end RB1 capability that we really thought Pollard could have this season, and that hurts because you drafted him pretty high in your leagues.
Right, you did for sure, and I mean, I know people had high hopes for him. Derek Brown on this live stream earlier this year had him pegged as his running back one, and I mean, he wasn't alone. People had that kind of expectation.
He talked me into it too.
One of the issues, though, has been, he's been in the red zone and he's got a lot of use in the red zone, not turning them into a lot of touchdowns, and that's been a huge difference as well. I mentioned it on the program the other night, and I mentioned it here on the chat, but if other people have not heard this, Michael Gelkin from the Dallas Morning News has been charting this, and the number of plays where Tony Pollard hits his high-end speed, 19 miles an hour or faster, is way down this year. Last year, it ended up being just under 5%. This year, it's under 2%. So he's just not getting those breakaway plays that he's gotten in the past, and so maybe that can change, maybe not. We're sitting here. What's not going to change for another half hour. Sam Wagman is with me. You know him from the Game Day NFL. I see him at Football Guys too. Follow him on the X Twitter device at swagman95. Swagman95, if you want to say it like the cool kids do. Sam, tell us what you got going on at the Game Day NFL.
Oh man, I got a ton of stuff over there. You can find me on there. I write our Fantasy Football Buzz newsletter with the help of good friends Scott Engel and Frank Amarante. We write that twice a week. That's out every Tuesday and Thursday mornings. I write the matchups to exploit column, which will go live on the site tomorrow morning, as it does every Thursday morning. I do our power rankings. I do a bunch of stuff over there between content strategy, content creation. I will have been on the Better Plays Ahead betting show with Matt Williams and Frank Amarante the last few weeks, and we'll be on there again tomorrow. But all of my stuff is over there. Do a lot of different things over there, and we got a ton of cool stuff coming for you guys, both content-wise, both audio and video-wise. Tons of great stuff over there. So go check it out over at the Game Day NFL.
I highly recommend this. We'll dive back into your questions. I'll remind you, you can hear me on the radio, the Fantasy Sports Radio channel on SiriusXM every Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 10 p.m. or 3 hours Monday and Thursday. On Saturdays as well on NFL and the Fantasy channel. It's a simulcast, they call that. It's a fancy thing. We're on from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time, me and Dempsey. And then I'm on with Jeff Mans on the pregame show from 11 to 1. And we sort out all the issues as things go down right before the game time. See more questions. We will get to all of these. Gentlemen, says Dave Listman, a running back mediocre quagmire in the standard league. James Cook, Javonte, Roschon, Keaton, Mitchell, Jalen Warren. Needs 2 of those. Cook, Javonte, Roschon, Keaton, Mitchell, and Jalen Warren. Standard league.
This is so for sure I'm going Javonte here against Buffalo's run defense. Not a very impressive run defense. Their defense as a whole has just not been very impressive. And the more time Javonte goes from that ACL injury, the more work he's been getting. From Sean Payton, which has been nice there. So he's my first pick there. And honestly, I think I would probably go back to what I said earlier, and I would take Jalen Warren here. As I think they're going to go against the run funnel defense that is the Green Bay Packers this week. Warren has, showed nice explosivity when his number is called upon, has been good out of the passing game as well. And I'm not ready to trust Keaton Mitchell yet. So, especially against the Cincinnati or the Cleveland run defense, which hasn't been great. I will start with that. But again, I can't trust one guy out of the 3-headed backfield who hadn't logged a single snap prior to last week's game. I mean, perhaps it's the start of something, but Gus Edwards is still there. He still scored a couple touchdowns, on his limited snaps. Justice Hill is still getting used there pretty decently. And Mitchell hasn't shown me enough yet. It's kind of like Achane from a couple months ago. We needed to see him do what he did to Denver before we trusted him. Nobody was talking about him as a must start before that game. And then he kind of just balled out right there and showed us.
And we may see it from Mitchell at some point. Maybe he turns into an Achane that you must play every week. But I'm with you. I'd like to see a little more than one game before I buy into it, especially in, as you said, the murky 3-man committees are, man, I hate them. And maybe he can, emerge as a more vital piece and be a true complement to Gus Edwards and see you, Justice Hill. We'll see. I mean, anything's possible, but it's not there right now. So I'm with you. I'm going Javonte for sure. Was James Cook your second choice?
No, Jalen Warren was my second choice. And my thing with James Cook is that we may see Big Lenny make his debut in this game against Denver. And don't count out Denver. They have been quietly good defensively the past few games. Obviously, in that win against Kansas City, they looked good, and they've turned a little bit of a corner in their defensive efficiency the last few weeks. So I haven't seen enough from Cook to label him a must start anymore. I wasn't on the train to label him a must start in the first place. And it doesn't seem like the Bills are going want to give him that role, and I don't blame him. He's undersized. He like you said on the radio show the other night, he hasn't been turning his runs into explosive plays like he did last year. And that's a huge part of it. The fact that the Bills just don't want to run the football. And that hurts him more than anything.
I wish I was as skeptical about Dalvin as I was about James. I'd be in good shape now.
Yeah.
All right. Cole Kmet versus Carolina or Evan Ingram versus San Francisco.
This is a pretty clear Engram lean for me with Tyson Bagent. Despite the fact that we have seen Kmet look really good with Bagent the last couple games, I can't shake the feeling that tomorrow's game is going to be some weird 14-10 slugfest between two teams that have just struggled to score. And Engram at least gives you pass catching upside. If San Francisco goes up, they're going to have to throw, and they've been weak to giving up chunk plays, in their secondary lately. And I think Engram's on some crazy catch streak where he's had 5 in the last 6 games. So he's on a nice run there. He's always dependable in Jacksonville with Doug Peterson as his coach. And I just don't get those same vibes from Cole Kmet just yet. Maybe it's the fact that I've been burned way too many times by him.
I was surprised by the big plays last week. I'll be surprised again this week if he gets them, and I'll be playing Evan Ingram as well. Dame Overboard would like to test our level of Barkley concern. Will we start Jordan Addison against New Orleans or Jahan Dotson versus Seattle over him?
Ooh, well, I'm with you in that I don't trust Dotson given the fact that he's a little bit nicked up. So that's a no. And I think in the last game before Justin Jefferson returns, I think I would trust Addison. It's very tight. I'm thinking about it. But, he's going to see a little bit of Marshawn Lattimore. He lines up on Lattimore's side about 40% of the time. But he also lines up on Pulse on the Debo side a pretty fair amount. And he's been a little bit good. But I'm looking at a slot matchup as well. I think, Addison spends some time in the slot, and he gets Alontae Taylor this week, who's been one of the worst cornerbacks against slot receivers in the league this year. That's been a little bit of a system play, is just start the receiver that's going against Alontae Taylor, even 30% of his snaps. And I definitely think Addison's going to play there, a pretty decent amount this week. So I would probably lean Addison slightly. I mean, look, as much as I love Saquon, how much is he realistically going to play once the Cowboys open up a 21-0 lead in the first 10 minutes? Because it's going to be bad.
I agree with this, and also, I feel like it's almost a bridge too far, but I would be tempted to do the same thing. I tend to play volume, Sam. I'm chasing volume. The outcomes are going to be volatile and change from week to week, and the NFL loves it when that happens. So I'm generally playing the certain volume. I'm probably going to do it again this week, but I would feel really crappy about it, Dame. And when all is said and done, I might end up wishing I had played Addison. Josh Dobbs, the passing numbers weren't phenomenal. The rushing totals were great, and maybe they'll be great again. This Dallas defense, though, they're going to have nothing to tee off on but Saquon Barkley. And that's the thing that's, and once they go up, he can be part of the passing attack. Maybe he racks up a ton of PPR dump-offs from
I think that's his only saving grace. Yeah, I think that's just his only saving grace in this game, because Dallas has some issues early on in the season against the run, but they've clamped down on it. They're only allowing 81 rushing yards per game over their last 3 games. So, I'd be a little bit skeptical, and so I don't like to chase safety anymore.
Slight lean for me for Barkley. I'm not against Sam's, take here at all. I'm just going to go with the slightest lean, Dame. That's my level of concern. Sam's level slightly higher than mine, but we're close. And totally get your concern as well. Mr. Scamper's in a PPR guillotine league. Godwin versus Tennessee. Montgomery versus the Chargers. Madison versus New Orleans. He's leaning Montgomery, going right back to his previous workload. I think we've worked through this. I think I would lean Montgomery over Godwin in this one. Would you do the same, Sam?
Yeah, I would as well. I think, especially in a guillotine, both Godwin and Monty scream safety, but Monty gives you that touchdown upside that Godwin is not giving you this year. And I would, again, you want to lean for guys who have safety, but they also have the chance to score touchdowns. And Monty is way ahead of Godwin in that regard for me.
I totally agree with that. Dave, we already saw that. I figured that out, Dave. Pat V, also PPR, who sits? This is going along with his Jerome Ford at Baltimore, DJ Moore versus Carolina, or Cortland Sutton against Buffalo in a primetime game of some renown.
So this is kind of crazy. With the news that Tyson Bagent is starting, I'm going to go with Sutton here because it's been Sutton, not Jerry Jeudy, as feels like everyone but me in the fantasy community thought it was going to be this year. I've been a long-time Cortland Sutton stan. I was the last of a dying breed of people who still thought Sutton could be good 3 years after his original quasi-breakout season. And I think Sutton's going to have a really good game against this Buffalo secondary that can't stop anybody right now. They are bad in the secondary right now. He gets a probable matchup against, I believe it's Christian Benford. No, it's going to be Dane Jackson about 50% of the time, who's been just as bad as Benford.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, right?
See if Rasul Douglas is up to speed by that point. He's the only one I would be worried about in that Buffalo Bills defensive backfield there, and I think he probably lines up a little bit more on Sutton or on Jerry Jeudy than he does on Sutton. Given Judy's a little bit more of an explosive guy, and Rasul Douglas typically covers the assumed team's top target. And I think they will view that as Judy there. So Sutton for me is kind of, a pretty sneaky flex play that carries some pretty high upside this week. We could see him go, for 70 and a touchdown pretty easily there.
Agree with that. And one of the issues that I've had with Ford all along, the touchdowns were great early and everything was going smooth, but he was not very efficient as a runner. Also, against the Arizona Cardinals, where you would expect him to be more efficient as a runner, he averaged 2.2 yards a carry. I'm probably going to go with you on this one. I believe I will. Yep. So we are.
He's still in some creepy timeshare. He's still in some creepy timeshare with Kareem Hunt. It's weird.
But it seems like at least, the good news is there seems to be less Pierre Strong Jr., and he's also not practicing this week, has a hamstring injury. Maybe that was part of the reason we didn't see him last week, but I just expected more in a matchup against Arizona. So I'm with you. Sutton it is. Hello, Golf Boy. Thanks for coming. Dustin Powers wants to know this. Yesterday, he traded for Lamar in his Dynasty League. Congratulations. I'm looking to move Deshaun Watson and keep Lamar and Bryce Young as my QBs. What should I ask for Watson pick-wise? A first or a second and something else? What are we looking for here, Sam?
I think you should probably still be asking for a first plus for Watson at this point. He's 1 year into this massive contract at that point. They can't cut him. I don't know when the outs are.
Not going to cut him.
I don't want to. Yeah, and I don't think they can get rid of him, even trade him until 2025 with all the dead cap money that would come into play there. So I think you're safe in the fact that he will be the quarterback there for a little while. I think it's fair to assume that Watson probably had some identity issues coming back after a 2-year layoff. Rust aside, all the negative spotlight attention that's been on him. And I think it's fair. We probably jumped the gun in assuming that he would just shake all that off right away and come out and play football. And we're starting to see a little bit of the old Watson peek through. I think it's fair to wonder, I don't think it's fair to wonder if, what he did in Houston was just a fluke, because I always thought he was a very, very talented quarterback. And I still think he's a talented quarterback. I just think some of the, the extraneous circumstances have gotten to him probably, mentally. And I think, as time goes on, I think he's going to shake all that off. And I think next year he will be back to what he was fully. And, I'm fully expecting that to be wrong. But, it might not be. But I think right now his dynasty value is, still a first and possibly, a second on top of it.
Would definitely ask for, that'd be my starting point for sure. And I agree. I mean, someone's going to, you think about the Cleveland situation. Who has more job security right now? Is it Watson or Kevin Stefanski? I think Stefanski's doing a great job, but I mean, if it came right down to it, I mean, he's the piece that's going to go before Watson does, because Watson's got all the investment. So I'm with you there, Sam. I think Watson for a first to start out, but I'd be keeping the guys you're keeping too. We'll see what happens with Bryce Young. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah. I wouldn't cut bait on Bryce Young just yet. Yeah, Jared Goff. Jared Goff springs to mind. We all thought Goff was a bust after 7 games in 2016, and we thought Carson Wentz was the next coming of literally every good quarterback ever, me included.
That's true.
So that ended very well for me. Still have a Wentz jersey sitting in my closet. I'm scared to get rid of. One day.
Mark Spafford is tempted to pick up Noah Brown. Are there too many mouths to feed to make it worth it? Houston plays Tennessee. It's in weeks 15 and 17. That this is true. So there are a lot of good favorable matchups there. I feel like Noah Brown might be a little far down the depth chart, but where are you at on that, Sam?
Yeah, I think depending on Brown to be an everyday fantasy starter for you is going to be tough, because he's certainly behind Nico Collins and Tank Dell in the pecking order. He's probably behind Dalton Schultz in the reliability order. And after that is up for grabs. But this is still Noah Brown. This is the guy we've seen post, 2 top 10 performances in like 5 years? Like, he's not reliable at all whatsoever. He wasn't reliable in Dallas. He hasn't really been, there's nothing that says he was reliable here. This was just a crazy, spike game against a defense in Tampa Bay that can't stop anybody this season. So I don't know. I think it depends what you're working with now. Sure, he might be worth, a streamer for those spots if you don't have anybody better against, Tennessee, but I wouldn't be starting him every week. I would look to avoid that.
I'm with you there for sure. Let's do some quick hitters here as we're getting down to the last 10 minutes. We'll get all the questions in, people. Half point PPR, Mr. Scampers wants to know this: 2 out of Chuba at Chicago, Javonte or Gabe Davis in Buffalo, or Montgomery against the Chargers. 2 of those, Sam.
That's Montgomery and Javonte. Pretty simply for me there.
Me too. Let's see what else we have. Another tight end question, similar to what we saw. Drafted Evan Ingram, picked up Dalton Kincaid on waivers for the bye week. Which of those would you keep, and who would you let go if he is unable to trade one of those? And I would try a trade first, because those are both tight ends that people are going to be interested in. Maybe Kincaid more so than people should be, just because he's kind of on the rise or just coming on the radar. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I think right now Kincaid's value is as high as it's going to get this season, given the fact that they're still going to be without Knox for another couple weeks. And he's got a good matchup this week against Denver. I would look to trade Kincaid now. You don't know what's going to happen when Dawson Knox comes back. They were using a ton of 2 tight end sets, and inevitably Kincaid was asked to block on some of them and just taken off the field outright in others. Because they've had a lot of issues on the offensive line. They've needed some guys to block. So Kincaid has not always been the receiving threat we thought he was early in the season, but right now he's turned into a really good usage play. I would play him over Ingram this week.
Yep, I think that's a reasonable expectation there. All right, then. So we have 2 of these. Let's see. Did I miss one? No, I did not. Ridley, non-PPR, Ridley versus San Francisco, or Tank Dell at Cincy?
Ooh, I was hoping we were going to get one of these questions. So this is really tough for me. I'm going to lean Calvin Ridley very, very slightly here over Tank Dell. And I think people will probably disagree with me given the recency bias for the 2 players. Tank Dell is obviously coming off the best game of his career. And Ridley has been mired in a little bit of a slump. But I think that the San Francisco game provides a pretty unique opportunity for Ridley to kind of shine under the radar. This is a San Francisco defense that has shown a distinct weakness against perimeter receivers. They're giving up currently the 7th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers out wide this year, and they've really struggled the last few weeks against wide receivers in general. They're allowing the 6th most passing yards per game, over 273 per game to wide receivers. They've struggled in the secondary there. And, Cincinnati has been good in their secondary over the past few weeks. Lou Anarumo is really starting to find his groove once again. Remember, he had a ton of creative ideas last year that helped the Cincinnati defense really overcome really anything. They just held Buffalo to 14 points. And I'm not sure that Tank Dell is the type of consistency magnet that you're looking for, at this point in the fantasy football season. He's, going to ball in those great matchups. But otherwise, he might just be pedestrian. We might see, like a 4 for 65 from him. But Ridley has the chance to truly shine in a game that Jacksonville will be looking to really put a statement game here, in their candidacy for, contending in the AFC.
People might disagree with you. This people does not. I'm on board. Steve Linder needs 2 of these. Oh, wait. We need 4 of these. 2 out of these 4 first. Or needs sit. Let me read. Need to sit 1 of these 4. One running back out of these 4. Need to sit 1 running back out of these 4 in a PPR. Montgomery versus the Chargers. Brian Robinson versus the Seahawks. James Conner versus the Falcons. Rashad White versus the Titans. Pretty easy call for me, I think. So probably for you.
Yeah, I would probably lean Brian Robinson, sitting him here. against the Seahawks rushing defense that's played really well over the last few weeks. We're gonna put the Baltimore game out of our minds.
Right.
But I think otherwise they played really well. Getting Leonard Williams in the lineup was definitely a plus for Seattle at the trade deadline. I think, as he gets up to speed, he's only going to help that rushing defense get a little bit better there. Connor could be the sit by default if he just doesn't play.
Right.
Again, we'll see that. I think you're definitely starting Monty versus the Chargers, and you're honestly going to start Rachaad White versus the Titans because as bad as he is as a runner, and as good as we think the Titans' run defense is, they've shown some cracks in the armor the last few weeks. They looked a little down against Pittsburgh, so they've been giving up some rushing yards to guys. And Rachaad White's been really good out of the backfield for the passing game too. So I really think that Baker's going to check down to him a bunch. So it would be between Robinson and Connor here. I think Connor, obviously, if he sits, is the play. But otherwise, it would be Brian Robinson for me.
And we'll know about Connor Saturday afternoon, so by 4 p.m. Eastern time. Sit PPR, 2 of these 3. So sit 1 of these 3. Shaheed versus the Vikings, Sutton versus the Bills, Demario Douglas versus the Colts. Douglas a little nicked up today. He was limited. Everyone else is healthy. I would probably like to play Douglas myself and probably sit Shaheed if not. But it's a good pivot. Would you go Shaheed over Douglas just in a vacuum as it is now, or would you prefer Douglas if you could?
I don't know. I don't really trust Douglas. I like ceiling. I like playing for ceiling if I can. So I would probably go with Shaheed simply because, it's a flip of a coin that he could get, 150 yards, and there just aren't that many guys you can say that about. And Douglas is fringe enough that you could, feasibly sit him, and he's nicked up. And I also think the Colts have been a little bit of more of a run funnel than a pass funnel lately. So I could see them leaning on Stevenson in a matchup like this. And I'm starting Sutton. So I would honestly lean sitting Douglas very, very slightly.
I think that's fair. I mean, it's very close for me. I'd probably lean the other way, but it's just a very lean, and I'm like maybe a little overly in on Douglas as is for sure. Okay. Dave Overboard just saw that Kenneth Walker III is questionable. I believe this is sleeper questionable, right? So that's not actually questionable. That's just he either missed a practice or whatever. So watch that, Dame. But let's say he is actually questionable or does not play. Would you play Charbonneau over Saquon if there was no Walker? I think you would.
No. Would you? You would? I don't know.
Walker's out.
I struggle with it. I'm trying to convince myself that Charbonnet is ready to be a starting running back. I'm just don't know that we've seen it yet, and I don't know. I think it depends how much we think he would be used in the passing game. I guess he has been used a little bit as a decent amount, but again, it's like you said earlier. You lean towards volume. I feel like Saquon would get just enough volume to outpace Charbonnet at that point.
I think this one's closer. I think if there's no Walker, this one's closer. I would ask me again Saturday, Dame, and we'll see where Kenneth Walker is then.
Might have a different answer.
Yes, Hunch, 1 off the waiver wire. Javonte Williams, Ramondre Stevenson, or Chuba Hubbard. Wow.
Wait, these guys are on the waiver wire? That's kind of wild.
They have the wire. Am I reading this right? Hunch, 1 off the wire. Just rank those 3 over rest of the season.
Okay. Rest of the season, I would roll with Ramondre Stevenson, then Javonte, and then Chuba Hubbard. And it's simply because of the PPR upside that Ramondre offers. And again, this is me just subscribing to sunk cost fallacy at this point. But I do think Ramondre could head for a second half rise, if all goes well for him there.
I don't disagree with you at all. Let's see if we can. Simmons or Fitzpatrick is an IDP question. I think Fitzpatrick is a little beat up, so I'm probably going to sit him. Mr. Scampers, Scott Fishbowl, sit 1. Gabe Davis versus Denver. Zay Flowers versus Cleveland, or Boyd versus Houston. Just the player. Give me if you would. Sit 1.
Sit Boyd.
Sit Boyd. I'm with you there. Boyd. We'll see if the other pieces are out, though. if Chase and T are both, going to miss out, then that would probably change the dynamic. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate the kind words. Thank you, 513 rookie. Quickly, a trade. Let's see. I give them CeeDee Lamb for Kelsey and Michael Thomas. So basically, Lamb for Kelsey.
I'm looking at this now. He's got AJ Brown. He's got Puka, Christian Kirk. I think he's. This is decent enough. Can you find out if Taylor Swift is attending the rest of Kelsey's home games? I don't think she is. I think she's on. I would take this trade though. It's fringe, but I have you have enough firepower. AJ Brown, Christian Kirk, both guys are Kirk is top 15 rest of the season for me. Puka should be fine once Stafford comes back. Yeah, I would do this. I would do this trade.
I would too. In a full PPR, last question, peoples. KJ Osborne, sounds like he has a concussion. Don't know if he'll be available. Khalil Shakir, Jonathan Mingo, or Wandale could throw a dart at Mims on Monday night. He's got Puka, AJ, and Waddle on bye. Ouch.
Well, this is between Jonathan Mingo and Khalil Shakir for me, and I am actually going to go with Jonathan Mingo here. The Bears are one of the worst defenses versus perimeter wide receivers over the last 6 weeks, giving up the sixth most fantasy points per game to them. So that gives me the edge here for Mingo. And Shakir is good for 2 catches, 40 yards, but we haven't seen him do much else there. Outside that one game.
Yeah, that's what we're playing if we're playing that one good game. Maybe he can pick up the pace. Anyway, we've done the damage we can do here. It's been a blistering hour of fantastic information. Sam Wagman is great. You can catch him at the Game Day NFL. You can catch him on the Twitter box at Swagman95. That's SWAGMAN 95. Check him out. You'll hear him occasionally on the Football Diehards program. You'll hear me there every damn time, including tomorrow night, Thursday. 10 p.m. We'll be on until 1 in the morning. Friday again from 10 until midnight. Saturday from 8 to 11 on NFL Radio and Fantasy Channel. Go to the website. Tons of good stuff there waiting for you. I'll see you Saturday. I thank you all for coming. See ya.